Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Today is Tuesday, August 16th, and I'm Mimi Brown.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, Black farmers may finally get that long-awaited money from their lawsuit against the USDA. Senators Raphael Warnock and Cory Booker are working on a plan to get them the money they so much deserve. Meanwhile, a Michigan judge declares in the Flint water crisis lawsuit, it comes after jurors failed to reach a unanimous verdict in a case against two engineering firms. Details on that are on the way. Then, Ahmaud Arbery will always be remembered in his hometown of Brunswick, Georgia. City leaders recently honored his memory.
Plus, LeBron James and his wife are getting married again. We're going to give you the details on that. And Busta Rhymes is being remembered for his legendary flow. We'll tell you who's honoring the hip-hop pioneer. We have all of that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth. So let's get it.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. We start today with news on how Black farmers may benefit from the Inflation Reduction Act. Democratic Senators Cory Booker and Raphael Warnock, they are crafting a plan that would use the money from the recently passed act to help Black farmers. The plan allows $2.2 billion to go to farmers who have been discriminated against for decades by the Department of Agriculture. Now, that money was supposed to have already been distributed through the American Rescue Plan last year, but a group of white farmers led a lawsuit alleging that the deal discriminated against them. Now, that put a halt to the payments until the lawsuit is dealt with. Now, for decades, the USDA has denied loans to Black farmers who lost their property because they could not grow crops. I'm so happy that Senator Cory Booker and Senator Raphael Warnock are putting Black farmers at the forefront, because this lawsuit that the white farmers filed a year ago has tied up this money, and so they haven't been able to get the money that they need to be able to continue farming. You know, we see this a lot. We've seen this on shows like, if you think of like Queen Sugar, they do a really good illustration of what Black farmers are facing and how unfair it has been. So it's been over 100 years. There have been discriminatory practices and policies that have disadvantaged Black farmers. And so when President Biden came in, he set aside some money so that the Black farmers would get the money that they need so that they can, kind of, I don't want to say be equal, because I think once you fall behind 100 years, it's hard to catch up. But he was going to help them. And so they filed this lawsuit. And so hopefully now with this new act, this Inflation Act, the Black farmers will be able to get some money while this plays out in court in litigation, because it is just not fair. And I don't see how they can claim the act is discriminating against them when they've always got the money. And Black farmers just want their just due.
Absolutely. Black farmers have definitely lost this fight for many years and have just been disproportionately affected for many, many, many years by this. And so the goal of this is to pretty much keep families on their farms, because you think about it, this is definitely a great way to make money for yourself for generations to come. There is nothing like having your own land, but also having your own farm as well. And so just a quick story. You guys know I went to agricultural high school. And so I was in the FFA, which is the Future Farmers of America, in high school, and they taught us the importance of how much money your family can make by having your own in-house farm. And so I learned early on how important it was to be a farmer, being a Black farmer. And so I'm happy that you brought up Queen Sugar as well, because that is a movie. Farming is not something that is the most glamorous job, but there is so much money in having your own produce right there in your backyard.
And really quick, and I brought up Queen Sugar, but as a Black individual, like my mother was raised on a farm. My grandfather was a Black farmer, and he raised 16 kids in Arkansas on his farm. And so it is very lucrative. You can raise your own money. You can sell the items that you grow, and it supported their whole family, all 16 children. So it's very important that we support our Black farmers.
When you think about Black farmers, like you said, 1920, there was close to 1 million Black farmers. They got pushed out. I think we're less than 36,000 maybe Black farmers now, but that take away some generational wealth. and health, because now you're cooking your own food, you have your own food right there, which makes things better for your situation. Long overdue, but it is very insulting that the white farmers were saying like, hey, now we're being discriminated against when we are the ones that have been pushed out for over 100 years.
Well, the fun part about it for being a white farmer is in the situation is that, when we get discontinued from the farming, then they get to make more money. So it's like, now I'm going to lose some more money, but this is also money that we should have had. Mimi, I'm really happy that you told the story about your family, because that is something that I never even thought about of people growing up. That's their home, right? Sometimes you think about animals on a farm only are the only ones that are losing out. Some people are losing out on where they grew up. This is all they know.
And
so it's exactly
equals money.
Exactly.
It does. So
exactly.
For the people who felt like they were disrespected, the white people, sorry, but we're back and we're reclaiming our time.
Okay, reclaiming our time. I love it.
Right. Now to an update on the Flint water crisis. A judge declares a mistrial after jurors failed to reach a unanimous verdict in a case against 2 engineering firms. Veolia North America, and Lockwood, Andrews, and Newman, they're all accused of not doing enough to get the city to treat the highly corrosive matter, or even to urge a return to a regional water supplier. Now, the 2 firms, they claim that bad decisions by state and local officials caused this crisis. After hearing months of evidence, jurors could not agree on whether the firms were liable.
This next story disturbs me, especially since I grew up in Missouri. Now, Missouri has a horrible distinction as the black murder capital of the United States. Now, between 2014 and 2019, Missouri's black homicide rate increased by an unbelievable 45%. For the last 13 years, the state has either been number 1 or number 2 on the list. St. Louis and Kansas City are where the bulk of the murders are happening, the cities with the largest African-American population in that state. Nationwide, black people make up 14% of the U.S. population, but we are 52% of the homicide victims. Guns are responsible for 88% of those killings.
Now, back in 2020, Congress voted to rename 9 U.S. Army bases that honor Confederate officers. Now, a commission has come up with a price tag for it all. It will take an estimated $21 million to rebrand everything from welcome marquees and street signs to hospital doors. The changes are expected to happen no later than January 1st, 2024. Now, Fort Bragg, which is home to the 82nd Airborne Division, was named after a slave-owning plantation owner. If it is changed, it will become Fort Liberty.
And Brunswick, Georgia is renaming a street for the late Ahmaud Arbery. Arbery was the 25-year-old black man that was hunted down by 3 white men in 2020. The street, which will be known as Honorary Ahmaud Arbery Street, runs for about 2.7 miles through the heart of Brunswick's black community. Brunswick is Arbery's hometown. A giant mural of his smiling face will be located near the city's African American Cultural Center.
A New Orleans man who spent 20 years locked up in the notorious Angola prison is a free man today. Cedric Dent was released this week after the Innocence Project was able to convince prosecutors and a judge he was wrongfully convicted of a 1997 murder. Now, Dent was only 23 years old when he was convicted of the shooting outside a New Orleans supermarket. The Innocence Project says prosecutors at the time withheld documents that showed a witness to the shooting gave a description that did not match Dent. A judge granted a motion Monday to vacate Dent's conviction. Prosecutors have agreed not to pursue the case any further. This is something that's been going on for years, for decades. People wrongly committed. Their lives are lost. 20-something years behind bars. You think about what you've lost with the connection with your family, what that does to you mentally. And it always reminds me, I always go to this site because it has a list of black men that have been wrongfully convicted, like Herbert Alford. He spent 5 years in jail simply because Hertz would not allow him to have this receipt to show proof that he had a rental car, that he wasn't somewhere else. Then you have another man by the name of Walter Forbes who spent many years, 30 years, right? So these are people that are wrongfully convicted because either we don't have the right information that they're putting in court when it's time to have them on trial, or they're being forced to sign something that they didn't actually do. And we know that happens to young kids too.
Well, I think that both of those potentially happen here in this case, Romeo, because what happened here is that there were multiple witnesses that gave testimonies that said that the suspect that it should have been did not match his description. Some kind of way, those documents just did not, they got lost somewhere. And so they say that there were multiple witnesses here that gave these descriptions. And so I'm just curious to know, how do these documents just get get lost. And whoever lost them, that what we always say is that person needs to be investigated, because there could be a history of lost documents in other cases that will hopefully will come to light as a result of this.
You know, a couple of things with this prison. So Angola in New Orleans, it's known as the prison where slavery never ended. It is one of those prisons where you do hard labor. You make a few cents an hour to work, but it's not like you're working in the commissary. I'm sure there's some people who do that, but majority of these prisoners, they do hard labor. They're outside in the sun. And to know that you were wrongfully convicted for 20 years and you spent your life basically working for slave labor, less than a couple of few cents an hour, is unconstitutional. And apparently this prison, this prosecutor in this case, they had like a history of doing this, because Dent, the guy we're talking about, he's actually the nephew of another exonerated man, Elvis Brooks. Now, according to the Innocence Project, Brooks was freed in 2019 after serving 42 years in prison. And so he was 62 when he came home. And his case is similar to his nephew's in the fact that they withheld information during the trial. So prosecutors said that they would only free him if he admitted to something and or if he pled guilty and he refused to do it. So, you know, it's very unfortunate, Romeo. And then you brought up that website that has all the list of all the exonerated or the men who were wrongfully convicted. It's really sad that this continues to happen to us, and men are losing 20, 30 years of their lives. Whole families are losing chunks of their relatives and uncles and cousins to the same sort of injustice.
I was really happy to know, though, that after he got out of jail for 20 years, he was able to give his mom a hug, because sometimes you lose family members while behind bars, but to know that he got out of jail after 20 years, wrongfully convicted, and was able to hug his mother, first person he hugged, that had to feel wonderful.
Feel good, right. All right, the family of a young Philadelphia mother of 6 who was murdered by her fiance is looking for help to bury her. Ashley Lockhart was found stabbed to death inside a minivan with a knife still lodged in her skull on Saturday morning. Now, police say Lockhart was a mother of 6 girls who range in ages 8 to 5 months old. Prosecutors say Raymond Thompson turned himself into police. Investigators say Lockhart had an order of protection against him, and prosecutors say Thompson attacked her because he thought Lockhart was seeing another man. Lockhart's family says it has put out a GoFundMe page to raise money for her funeral.
Another very sad story. A mom and teen are being charged for an illegal abortion after Facebook turned over private DMs about her abortion plot. The platform has served a warrant from authorities in Nebraska for chat messages between the 41-year-old mom and her 17-year-old daughter. According to prosecutors, a friend tipped off investigators that the girl's mother had given her abortion pills when she was over 20 weeks pregnant before Roe versus Wade was overturned. Nebraska law stated that abortions are illegal at 20 weeks. The teen took the abortion pills and miscarried when she was 23 weeks, then burned and buried the fetus. Both women have pled not guilty to the charges. It is unclear if the remains of the fetus were found and are a part of the evidence against the mother and daughter. This story is a little heartbreaking, but also, I mean, if that's your mother, you know, your mother had you, and if your mother wants to help you carry out, because it's my body, my choice is what we say, but then, you know, if your mother wants to help you not be a mother at this age, and she's helping you consentfully technically do that, that is up to this family. It's just, I hate they had to throw away the fetus and all of that. Just, it's more gruesome, just more of a nasty story than anything. But I also just feel like if this is what this family wanted to do, that's also kind of like their family business.
Yeah, and that's the problem though, Demi. It is their family business. And I think what's happening right now, people are upset that Facebook actually turned over the messages between this mother and daughter to the authorities. And so people are now asking, where does it stop? So are social media companies going to send your chat to prosecutors who may want to prosecute you for abortions or other things that are now deemed illegal? This is a big issue, because think about all the chats or something that you may or may not have said, or something that you did, that you typed. You know, and I think we need to be careful when we are on these social media platforms, because when you sign up, you are signing away a lot of your rights. And I think we're seeing right here in this case police that when it comes to some of these platforms and what you're using and what you're saying can and will be used against you.
Because we give Facebook everything.
Yeah, we do. And if they're policing that, let's police the bullying. And how about those threats that people actually carry out when people are getting murdered as well? So if they're going to police one thing, police everything if you're doing that on social media. All right, a man in New York is raising awareness about a black maternal health after the death of his girlfriend who was giving birth to their son. Bruce McIntyre's girlfriend, Amber Isaac, died 2 years ago. He says Amber's blood platelet levels were low. He says her health deteriorated during her pregnancy. McIntyre says the couple alerted her gynecologist to her health issues, but their concerns were ignored. McIntyre says Montefiore Hospital was negligent in its care of his girlfriend. He is now caring for the 2-year-old without the woman he loved.
The Los Angeles City Council is banning homeless encampments within 500 feet of schools and daycare centers in the city. The highly contentious vote sparked protests and anger from homeless advocates at the hearing. The council's vote reflects the area's housing crisis. Now, Los Angeles has the second largest homeless population in the United States. And while black people make up only 8% of the city's population, we are 34% of the homeless in the city. Homeless advocates say the city should do more to relieve the problem rather than make people shift from neighborhood to live.
2 Mississippi law enforcement agencies are investigating the brutal arrest of a handcuffed black man who was put in a chokehold by a deputy. This is cell phone video of the incident shot by the victim's brother. Eugene Lewis was pulled over by the state trooper last Friday. Lewis says the trooper began hitting him as he was sitting in the patrol car. Lewis says he got out of the cruiser as the deputy hit him in the face and body. Eugene's brother, Packer, was recording as the deputy tackled him. The Mississippi Department of Public Safety, as well as the State Bureau of Investigations, are looking into this incident. So there were some people online that were saying there were 2 brave men. Shout out to the 2 brave men who put themselves in danger trying to protect them. This is very, very scary because this was on a little side back road. It doesn't seem like there would have been any camera footage, any lights that could have seen or helped out with this situation. So again, video footage is coming in handy in situations like this for people, innocent bystanders, who are willing to pretty much show the world what's happening to black people around the world when we encounter police officers.
Yeah, you know, when I look at that video, I wonder, okay, were there some words exchanged while he was in the car? First of all, he was handcuffed. So you, as a police officer, you're not in danger. And if there were words exchanged, you are trained to go ahead and just ignore that, right? You have to do your job, carry through. If you're going to arrest someone for whatever the reason was, handle that. But you can't get triggered to where it leads to something like this. The man is defenseless, and you literally drag him out of the car after you're already putting hands on him. Again, thank you that those men were there with that video and making sure we saw what happened that day.
Yeah, and speaking of the men there with the video, after they detained the man that they were arresting and put him in the car, they said that the officer walked toward them and pointed a gun at them, and they were then arrested. For what? I don't know, but that goes back to some of the things you always say, Demi, about people being brave enough to take the video and putting themselves in harm's way so that we have the evidence that we need to show that a crime was committed. Because, you know, a lot of times when we don't have that video evidence, it's like their word against ours, and 9 times out of 10, we're not the ones coming out on top. And so the officer hasn't been named, he hasn't been charged, but in Romeo, he was in handcuffs, as you said, so he was no threat. So there should be, you know, some sort of disciplinary action taken here. We have no word on what that is yet, though, but something should happen.
Keep us only supposed to.
Yeah.